Thanks for joining at Learnwake. This is Brandon Judd responding today to a video analysis request that has been uploaded by Jack here, and this is on some crow mobes. And in the submission here, he says, I've only landed one and have a very inconsistent takeoff. I tried them at slower speeds with a shorter rope length. Usually try and pass the handle because I can't land line very well. I think you mean you can't land blind very well. Need help. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. First of all, I commend you for your consistent 360 flips. It looks like you're pretty comfortable upside down, which is great for this. It looks like there's a couple things that you're lacking in board control, and obviously the landing could use some work with being able to land blind. So a couple things I would suggest just to get you better at the fundamentals without actually trying the trick and beating yourself up so much. Um, I would recommend doing some toe side, front side threes where you land in the cuffed position, where you can land cuffed or blind, or you can pass the handle if you get stuck. But what landing in the cuffed position allows you to do is gives you options. And then I do like, however, when you land that your head is not looking back around to the boat, that it's still kind of looking out towards shore, and that'll keep you from over rotating, which is good. So you can do switch heel side backside 180s, or you can do toe side front side 360s, and that's going to mimic the landing here. Those are great tricks to learn, and they're going to help you become much more consistent like this. And if you think about it, if you're just landing that trick without the flip, it's going to be a lot easier to just do a simple 360 or a switch heel side backside 180 landing when there's not as much motion going on in the air. It's a lot less variables for you to need to deal with. So that's on the landing side. As far as the takeoff, you mentioned you were inconsistent with it, and there's a reason why. The reason why is because your upper body is folding forward into the flip before you even take off of the wake. So what I mean here is if you look at your body here in this position, your hips are about straight on top of your board, and then your upper body is really diving forward. So if we take a peek at this, I want you to watch your upper body here really quick. Watch how it doesn't really go up. It stays the same, and the wake sort of kicks your feet around you. So if we watch this, watch how your body stays in just about the same position all the way, same height off the water, if that makes sense. Um, some of them you go up a little more than others, but uh, this is something that is really affecting your pop, and it makes you kind of flip out of control. You're no longer in control when the wake is controlling where your feet go, and your upper body is just kind of along for the ride. So another thing I want to point out, and that's kind of a symptom of the issue. So another thing I want to point out is how quickly you're folding and where your chest is going. So I want you to look at a couple examples. We have Kyle Schmidt's Chromobe here, and then we have Clayton Underwood's Chromobe, and look how similar the takeoff is between the two. I'll just kind of toggle back and forth. So you'll notice that the board is swept forward in front of their upper body, and they're standing pretty tall. They still are like a little bent forward, which is actually what helps trip them forward into the flip. But if you'll notice, their board is in front of them in both of these still shots here. Um, Handle and hips and shoulders are in about the same place. It's really kind of uncanny how the correct takeoff is the same almost no matter what rider you have. And then here's another one of Brian, and you'll see from the other angle just how tall he is. And then when we go back to yours, you'll see how folded in half you are, and your board is still kind of at the same position as theirs was, where you're halfway out of the water here. And this is going to kill your pop, and then it's going to put slack in the rope. So you'll see it's kind of like drooping almost a little bit here. And then if you look at Kyle's, look how tight the rope is. And Clayton's, see how tight the rope is. And with Brian's, you'll see how tight the rope is. So if you go back to yours, you'll see it's just kind of loose because you're diving forward. And when the rope goes loose here, then later in the trick, it gets all wobbly and really hard to control the rest of your spin. Um, so that's a couple things. So what I'll need you to do is just practice your scarecrows and go as slow as you can in the beginning. So you'll want to come into the scarecrow and you'll want to just stand tall and try to get your hips pushed forward more and your chest back more. Your chest should really be up here, not down here. And you'll find that you go way higher. You may have to try and flip a little less because it's going to really, the wake's going to kick you around a lot more. It's kind of mentally backwards. You feel like you need to start flipping so quick, but actually the less you flip at the beginning and the more you get tall and resist the wake here, that will actually make you flip more. So once you're in the air, you don't feel like you have to flip as much. Um, so because of that, you'll notice a lot of times you land a little under rotated, like you land kind of on your butt, um, where you can't really stand up over your toes. You're still kind of at this angle. And had you in the beginning, uh, had you stood tall and not been diving forward like this, if your chest was further back here, it would have tripped you up much higher, and then you would have finished the flip with your chest further over your toes. So that's the biggest thing. Really, it looks like, especially because of the repetition you've done here, how many times you've done this in the air, um, your air awareness of being upside down and doing a flip 360 seems to be pretty good. Like it's not like it goes in weird places. You don't end up in a different position when you land every time. This seems to be pretty consistent. Just the takeoff is consistently incorrect. Um, and it's going to make it hard to land blind out of a 360 flip if you can't land blind out of a 180 or just a 360. Um, so go back on Learnwake and work on some of the drills that helps um, build your blind landings and your cuffed landings, and it's going to really help a lot. Otherwise, that landing that you just did there, that one's going to be when you start getting the pop correct, this is going to be what happens a lot. You're going to get the handle passed, and you're not going to be able to stop yourself from spinning, and then you're going to slip out over your heels there. So try to slow that down at the beginning and not try and flip and spin so much. Like right here, the board is still in the water and you're already almost completely horizontal. And then you're already completely at 180 here. And then you stay at 180 and then get kind of stuck. So let's take a look at Kyle's really fast. And I'll play through the quick one and then we'll go through the slow motion one here together. Um, so if you look at how calm he is on the approach and then how well he resists the wake right here, it's kind of glitchy, but we can get it. All right, so right here he sends the board in front of him, in between him and the wake, and stands tall against the rope and stays and resists and resists and resists and resists and then sends it into the flip and then waits until the very end uh, to go to blind as it feels good. So he's still at scarecrow, still at scarecrow, still at scarecrow, still at scarecrow, and then just sets the tail of the board down on the water, and that kind of helps set him upright, if that makes sense. Um, Clayton does the same thing on his. Um, if we can get this slow motion one dialed in. Sorry, it's kind of for the poor quality, but you'll see he does the same thing. He wedges the board between him and the wake, stands nice and tall and holds it. He doesn't try and flip until he gets all the way up in the air, and then right at the peak of the trick is when he starts to flip. Right as soon as he gets the grab, then he lets the board kind of flip over him, and then he can drop out of it and just set the tail in the wake, and then right away comfortably. So that's kind of the key, and you'll see Brian does the same thing. If we watch him just kind of wedge the board between him and the wake and hold that position all the way up toward the peak of the trick. As soon as he gets the grab, then he flips at the top of the trick, and then he drops out of the flip and just sets the tail of the board down on the wake. Nice and easy. So, and then if we go back to yours and take a look at this again, you'll watch how quickly you start flipping, like right off of the wake. So you'll come in and immediately you're flipping. And then at the peak of the trick, you get kind of stuck and it's real hard to control this last bit. You're kind of at the mercy of your momentum. And then you'll slip out over your heels. Even though you were able to stand this one up, um, that'll be that way of landing it will be the consistent way that you're able to pull this off based on your takeoff. As soon as you change the takeoff, your landings will become much, much more consistent. So, congratulations on the one that you were able to pull out and stand a little taller, practice some scarecrows, and then practice some toe side, front side 360s. And get real comfortable with that. And then these things should be, as soon as you get those two things dialed, as soon as you get the takeoff a little stronger with your hips forward, uh, and then you can get a little bit more aware and comfortable landing blind. This thing's going to be the most consistent Mobe for you. You're going to feel really, really comfortable with it. So, congratulations on that, and hit us up if you have any other questions, and we'll see you around the site.